she goes again. So this is a continuation of Grandma's story, and we're on the Sweet 16 section.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not necessarily just teenage years.
Yeah.
And
Did I ever
what?
have my own car?
Yeah. Did you ever have your own
Never
car?
had my own car. I didn't drive.
And you did go to drive-ins after you were married.
Yeah.
And did you have a nickname,
No.
like in high school or anything?
Oh, like in grade school for a little bit, some kids called me Goats because my name was Betty Brody, but that was not.
Okay. Didn't
Didn't stick now.
And what used to make you mad?
When I was working, I worked at my dad's drugstore all through my high school years. And whenever we'd have a holiday, the people that would work at the store knew it. And they would always call in sick. So we very rarely ever had a free day because we were the standbys. And as soon as they knew we were off school, these ladies would call in sick.
Let's see. How did you meet Grandpa?
Well, he was a member of the Theater Guild, and I joined the Theater Guild a few months after I graduated. It was more or less open to all Catholic high school graduates. It was kind of specifically for Catholics. And I joined in September of 1951. And I think it was around in October that they were planning a play and kind of getting organized for the season. And they had what they called a get acquainted dance. And I danced with him a lot that night, and he brought me home. And I don't know if he didn't ask me out for a week or so, and I thought, I guess he's not going to ask me out. And he told me he thought I was too young. He was hesitant about asking me out. And so it was but he had taken me home that night, and we might have gone out once. And so then it was a Sunday afternoon. They arranged a bowling party, and he brought me home from that and asked me to go out that night. And so we've been out ever since.
See, your story is so much
I was rather amused
specific.
Listening for his details, but I knew he wouldn't remember all of it.
And how old were you?
I was 18.
Did Grandpa have any rivals?
Well, funny you should ask. He wasn't aware of it because I never told him, but I was writing to a boy that was in the service, and I'd gone to my senior Christmas dance with him, and a few months later he went in the service, and I wrote to him. We were kind of going together, but it wasn't anything real serious. And he was over in Germany. So I remember when I started going out with Joe, I made up my own mind. Like I say, I didn't tell him anything about this guy. I figured he wouldn't show up for a long time. So I wrote him a letter. I sent him a Christmas present and wrote him a letter and told him I didn't want to go out with him anymore.
Okay. And where did you go on your first date? Well, you've already said. Well, where did you go the night after the bowling party?
We went to a football game. Football Catholics, I guess. I don't remember whose it was.
And did you like him right away?
Yeah.
Did he write you love letters? Did you ever get mad at Grandpa while you were dating?
Oh, that's what I can remember.
What did your folks think of Grandpa?
They thought he was nice.
Where and when did he ask you to marry him?
Well, there's a little more detail to that Easter Sunday story. He always used to abstain from beer or any alcohol, but he drank beer fairly regularly at the theater guild. See, so during Lent he would never drink beer. And and Holy Saturday was always the official end of Lent at that time. So on Holy Saturday I got a bottle of beer, and I bought a beer mug, like a real big beer mug, special beer glass, packed it up and sent it to him in special delivery. And he got a big kick out of that. Thoughts that his sister told me later, he just kept, and so I think that kind of inspired him to pop the question.
The next day.
Yeah, he asked me the next day.
Wow.
And,
When did you get married?
we got married August 29th, 1953.
And what was your wedding like?
It was a real warm day, but I didn't feel too warm. I was so preoccupied with all the other commotion going on, I didn't notice the heat. But at that time, our wedding mass was at 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock. And so we left here, and all the bridesmaids gathered here. And my maid of honor was my sister Mary Jo, and then his sister Dot, and my cousin Marilyn, and my cousin Ann Louise. Marilyn Cooney and Ann Louise Grice were in my wedding. And they all gathered here, and we left and went up to church, and like I said, it's kind of a blur, but I remember during the Mass, Dad arranged that he got up and went to the choir loft and sang the Agnus Dei, I think, or the Ave Maria. I forget. He sang a solo at my wedding, and that was kind of a surprise for me, because I didn't know he was going to do that. But the choir, the cathedral choir, sang at our wedding.
Really?
And Uncle Leo was the director at the time.
Oh.
So Bob Schaefer played the organ.
I'll be darned.
And the choir gave us that white Madonna, that Hummel Madonna I have on my dresser.
Yeah, the
That's what
choir.
the choir gave us that. For a gift.
Where did you go on your honeymoon?
We went to the Smokies.
Where was your first home?
On Pike and Lee, above Columbia Federal, is a savings and loan. And we looked at several apartments, and this man that was the president of the savings and loan knew Dad real well. He used to come in the store for lunch, and he told me there was an apartment available. And so that's how we happened to get it.
Oh. Where were your babies born?
All of them born in St. Elizabeth North.
And next section is recipe days. This is a little different from the guys' thing. How did you learn to cook?
Well, I guess when we were kids, we used to bake cakes, and Mother would kind of let us bake cakes and oatmeal cookies, and we got some experience there. And then when I worked at the store, I didn't exactly cook, full meals, but we had hamburgers, and I remember breading fish and frying fish on Friday, and making slaw and stuff like that. That was kind of where and then when I got married, that was my job, to fix nutritious meals, and I always said, if you know how to read, you can learn to cook.
Did you have to help in the kitchen when you were a kid?
Yes, not much though. I helped mostly with dishes. I didn't do much ahead of time, maybe set the table.
And what was the first thing you ever cooked? Do you remember? Do you remember any disasters?
I remember one time, soon after we were married, we got a deep fryer, and I'd get salmon, and jack salmon, and fry it on Fridays. And this one time, I don't know what happened, it kind of got darker than usual, and
Mhm.
the breading didn't stay on it well. He came home from work and said, "Oh, did you clean out the deep fryer?" And I said, "No, that's our supper." So I guess it didn't look too attractive, but it tasted okay.
Did you have a garden?
No,
Did you can?
no.
Most-
One time I made pickles. It's the only time in my life I ever canned anything. And it was, Johnny was a baby. It's the only one we had when we lived out on Swan. And I had gotten, somehow I bought too many onions, so I saw this recipe in the paper how to make bread and butter pickles. And it seemed fairly simple, and so I got a lot of jars, bought a bunch of cucumbers, and I just was so proud of that. At the time Dad was working at night, like a night shift, and so he left for work and I had it all lined up and made these pickles. Well, here I read the recipe wrong. It had and a half cup of salt, and I read it for a cup and a half of salt. So I put 3 times too much salt in it, and they were so salty you couldn't eat them. I had to throw them all away. All that work. So that kind of,
It's another
I
disaster.
thought
We'll
God
put a
didn't
little
want me
error.
to can. Yeah, right. That was God didn't want me to do any canning, so I heeded His message.
What was your favorite recipe?
I don't remember any special favorites. I always just felt, cooking a nice balanced meal.
What was Grandpa's favorite recipe? Lemon cream pie
Yeah,
or
lemon cream pie, I guess, yeah.
And did you have your own stereo and tapes?
No, we didn't have our own, but I remember when I don't know how old I was in grade school, my dad bought a Philco record player. It wasn't a stereo, it was just a record player. And it was like curved front, and you'd open this drawer and put a record in and it'd go in automatically. I think he thought it would be safer and not disruptive it. And I remember the first records he bought was piano pieces of like the Fire Dance and Malaguena, and I just remember those records. We played them a lot,
What were your favorite songs and singers?
Well, I grew up during the 40s. I was born in 1933, so I was growing up in the 1940s. It was the big band era, and I loved all the big band music and all the songs from that era. And that's my favorite.
Any particular
Popular
singer that you
music.
just love, or?
Well, I like Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby.
Grandma, did you have to take music lessons?
Yes.
You
When
were-
I was probably in the 3rd grade, I guess. I don't remember. Mary Jo and I were both quite young. Mother and Dad bought a grand piano, and so they lined it up with Mr. Higdon, who was the organist at Blessed Sacrament Church, and they were good friends. Dad was in the choir, and they were good friends. So Mary Jo and I they were playing for us to take music lessons, and I don't know how, but there were 2 or 3 neighborhood kids that went with us. And there were probably 5 of us that went for piano lessons. And they didn't take very long. But Mary Jo and I took for quite a number of years from Mr. Higdon. And then I got tired of practicing and all this. And
So what kind of
finally
songs can you play after all this?
I took for, from about the 3rd grade to the 7th or 8th grade. And I told Dad I wanted to quit. And so when he told Mr. Higdon, he says, yeah, she doesn't have much aptitude
Oh.
for music and dances. I wish to heck he'd have told me that in the beginning. So, really all I can play is a real simple version of Silent Night.
I was just going to say you play a mean silent night.
Yeah.
Do certain songs bring back memories?
Oh, yeah. What? Huh?
Well, you know, that's kind of hard to
Yeah.
stir up right away.
Certain, songs that were popular at certain times,
Mm-hmm.
like through the summer and that, I remember.
And there's another one around here somewhere. Do you remember your first dance?
That was my first date.
Your boy next door. And did Grandpa sing or dance?
Well, I really started dating him as a result of a dance. He danced nicely. Of course, he sang in the theater guild.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's right. And you danced together. Okay, here's your favorite things. Your favorite color. What? Oh, okay. That's good. Okay. My favorite things. What's your favorite color?
It's hard. Yellow and pink. All shades of pink and teal, blue. There's a lot of favorite colors.
What about green?
Well, teal and green,
Yeah. Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah.
Strap's favorite color is not green. What's your favorite book?
Oh gosh, I don't read too many books lately, but I think one of my favorite books I read was Trinity.
And your favorite movie?
That's hard to say. There were a lot of favorites too. I'm trying to think some of the really good movies. Like I think The Diary of Anne Frank. I think that was really good.
That was a movie?
Uh-huh. And The Sting, I remember, I thought that was a very good movie. It was kind of a suspenseful thing that had you built up to the very last scene almost.
Wasn't the Diary of Anne Frank a book too?
Mm-hmm.
It was an actual diary.
Your favorite actress?
Not any one favorite. I like Betty Grable and Betty Davis and all the old movie
Betty
stars.
White?
I didn't know her till recent years.
Your favorite song?
Don't Fence Me In. Or
Seriously?
Cruising Down the River. They were two popular songs, and I always loved them.
I love it. Don't fence me in.
Cruising Down the River on a Sunday afternoon.
And your favorite radio program?
That was hard to say too, because there was a lot of really favorites. We listened to, they called it Lux Radio Theater, and what they would do, this sounds so silly now, but they would take a movie that had been quite popular, and they would condense it and dramatize it. It was probably an hour-long show. I don't know if they could do it in half an hour. Anyway, it would just be over the radio. They would dramatize this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably one of my, because there was a different story every night. Kind of a distraction, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I know we're both sitting there staring at it.
Yeah.
Matt just crawled under the camera to get a crossword puzzle, so excuse the interruption. He's busy now and he won't be bothering us
Yeah.
anymore. It was called Lux what
Sorry,
Theater?
Megan, you're on what?
Lux Radio Theater.
Radio Theater, okay. That sounds neat, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like telling a story.
Yeah, right. And they'd have probably a pretty famous movie star taking the part of the lead.
Oh.
You know, they'd have some like pretty big name guest stars.
And your favorite TV show was what?
When we first got a television, I was probably a senior in high school, maybe. I was, maybe a junior. And the first shows that were on, I mean, we just watched anything that came on. We'd watch wrestling, we'd watch, Paul Dixon was on, and then he just had like a DJ show on with Dottie Mack. I don't know if you ever heard that. Wanda Lewis, that was one of his sidekicks, Captain Wendy. And then there was Jerry Lewis, Lester. It had it was the beginning of the Tonight Show or Johnny Carson.
Oh, Jack Benny.
No, it was Jerry Lester, and they called it Broadway Open House. And it was we'd sit up real late and watch that. Now, I mean, I don't know if that was exactly my favorite, but I watched the early TV thing. Jack Parr is who you're probably thinking of. He was the one who Johnny Carson replaced.
Oh, okay, yeah. Favorite ice cream?
Vanilla.
Your favorite jelly?
Strawberry. Jam.
Your favorite soup?
It's a cross between, or tie between vegetable and chicken soup.
Your favorite sandwich?
Ham.
Favorite toy? Your sewing
I
machine?
guess my favorite toy now is a sewing machine. When I was a kid, it was my dolls.
Dolls. Favorite hobby?
Sewing.
Favorite spectator sport?
I guess baseball.
Your favorite participation sport?
I don't think there is any.
None.
I like to play badminton. I really do. I haven't played it in years, but I always liked it because it wasn't so hard. I mean, tennis was so hard on my arm. It took so much strength.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite vacation place?
Europe.
Your favorite cookie?
Yes, chocolate chip.
Your favorite restaurant?
Oriental Express. What did Dad say? Did he say that?
He said, something like Broadway or something I've never heard of. I forget the name.
Oh, I know what he said, Montgomery, and that was the Birdhouse. They're the ones with good ribs.
Oh, okay. He likes ribs? I didn't know that. Favorite city?
Fort Wright.
Oh. Your favorite actor?
When I was a kid, I really liked Van Johnson.
Your favorite game?
Badminton.
God, love, we didn't know this. Favorite bird?
Canaries.
I know, I'm getting it for a birthday.
Canaries? Well, they didn't fare well around here, but
Right. I'm not
still
their
like
favorite person. But I still like them.
you want to tell that story real quick?
About my birds.
So the people in the
The
in the television audience.
watching audience about my canaries.
Yeah, yeah.
I had several.
I know. They died, right?
Jimmy got me one for a wedding gift.
Oh, I didn't know about this one. I thought they were
And,
more recent.
And he would never take a bath, and that worried me because I was afraid to get mites and that, And so this one time I took him and dunked him up and down some water. He was sitting on the little perch like this. And Raymond came to visit me, and I said, "My bird's acting funny." He went, "He's dead."
Oh, no.
So I got another one, and I think he died. So then I gave up, and then when we moved here, I had at least 2 or 3.
Two.
And They died, so I thought I'll buy those little 39-cent fake birds
And you stuck
pretend
them
I
in the
have a
family
canary.
tree.
Yeah, I put them on the Christmas tree.
Oh, that's right. Okay, your favorite flower?
Um, oh, let's see. So many flowers, roses and daisies and lilacs. Daffodils probably my favorite.
After I wrote all those out, I didn't tell me that. Your favorite pet?
Oh, canaries.
Don't cry, Daddy.
I wasn't their favorite mistress, but they were still my favorite pet.
It reminds me of that cartoon where that little girl goes, I just want to love you and squeeze you. Oh, the bunnies! And the bunnies are like, Jom, running away from her. Yeah, I just want to love you and squeeze you and hug you. Candy. Your favorite candy.
Heath bars.
Your favorite month.
August.
Oh, gee. We pick our birthday months around here. What's your favorite season?
Fall and spring. Fall first, then spring.
Should have thought it was spring first and then fall the way you've been answering the rest of the questions.
First favorite tree.
I guess an oak tree, any big deciduous tree.
Big deciduous. Okay.
You know what that
And-
means?
It sheds its
Yeah.
leaves, right? Okay. Your favorite magazine.
American Heritage.
Oh. Your favorite cartoon.
Listen, honey.
That's a cartoon?
In the paper.
Oh, okay. Your favorite automobile.
Toyota Camry.
Your favorite vegetable.
Broccoli.
Little disagreement with old President Bush there.
Yeah, right.
Your favorite time of day.
Twilight time.
You're such a romantic. Your favorite dinner.
Look like
Well, probably maybe a small serving of chicken and lots of good vegetables.
And your favorite funny family story.
Oliver crying to the left.
I guess it's amongst the favorites is the time Joe hid Fig under the bed when he was babysitting. And Dad and I went in the bedroom to get ready. And of course we didn't know Fig was under the bed for 5 years. I mean, he wasn't under the bed for 5 years. He was it took 5 years for us to hear the story. We found out that Fig was under the bed, pushing Shrap's shoes out to the edge of the bed, and so forth. But there's thousands of funny stories.
How many different homes have you had?
Well, when I was born, my mother and dad lived on Holman Street. And I don't know how old I was. And it was during the Depression, and they found out about a house that was for rent on Amsterdam Road.
Mm-hmm.
And they rented a 5-room house for $35 a month. So they moved out it was in Park Hills,
How much a month?
$35 a month. And we lived there, I think, for a couple of years. And then there was a house for sale. I think the building alone owned it because these people had lost the house, which was happening at that time. And they bought the house on 3 Charmaine Circle. And that's what I consider my home, because that's where I grew up. I was probably 3 years old when we moved there. And we lived there till I was 18.
Okay. And then what?
That's almost 19. And then we moved to St. Anthony Circle. And I lived there less than a year when I got married. I guess I was 19 when we moved. And that was, I guess there were 4 homes I lived in.
Okay. Ever had any family reunions?
Yes. In fact, when Mother and Dad lived here on St. Anthony, they'd have the family reunions here in their yard. And then they started having them at other, like, parks and that, because it got so big. But when we were little kids, my grandparents lived on 9th Street in Newport, and they had a big side yard. And that's when the family reunion started. They'd have them there in their side yard, see the whole family get together. I think at the time it was usually in July, because my grandparents' anniversary was in July. So that's when they would usually have family reunion.
Where are all of your relatives living now?
Well, I have 2 sisters and a brother who live in California. Mary Jo lives in Van Nuys, and Jimmy lives in Los Angeles, and Margie lives in Alta Loma. And then
Where does Jimmy live?
Los Angeles, probably West Hollywood. And then my sister Nancy lives down in Goshen, which is near Louisville. Raymond lives up in Hamilton. And then our children, we have, most of them live around here locally, but we have one child lives in Jellicoe, Tennessee, Andy, and his wife Sandy, and 2 boys. And then our daughter Julie lives in New Orleans with her husband Dave and their 2 children.
Okay. And did you ever work besides at home?
Yes, before I was married, I worked at my dad's drugstore. And then I quit work when I got married. And then Mary Jo quit quite suddenly at Christmas time. And so I worked for about a month then. And then then we had the drugstore, or a health and beauty aid store over in Northside, and I worked there for several years. And then when I was on city council, I guess that's kind of an elected job.
Exactly.
On city council for 6 years.
Any more memories you'd like to share, or anything you'd like to say before you
Close off. I remember certain things, and I always think I'd like to put this down on paper, but some of my earliest memories are when I must have been not quite 2 years old. They dressed me up and brought me to see Mother in the hospital when she had Mary Jo. And I remember them holding me up and her crying when they held me up to her, because she'd be in the hospital for like 2 weeks. And I think they gave me a big bouquet of roses to give to her, you know. And I remember just that moment that I saw Mother and she reached up towards me. So that was pretty early to remember that.
Yeah.
And then I remember probably the day we were moving from that house on Amsterdam, walking out in the morning, and I probably was never allowed out by myself, and she was probably nearby, but walking out, there was that fresh, dewy, green spring smell, you know.
And how old were you?
I was probably 3.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not quite 3, I don't remember exactly. And I just remember that smell so well. I still love that green, like freshly cut grass. And then I also remember probably when we lived on Amsterdam there, this Mr. Wenning had a chow dog, and I remember he was chewing on the bone, and I got up real close to him to see him, and he bit me right in the nose.
Man.
And, oh, Mother was so upset, and Mr. Wenning brought me a bouquet of flowers, and he felt so bad. And so I remember that.
And how old were you for that?
I was probably between 2 and 3.
Man, you have a lot of memories from
When
then.
I was that young. And so I was
Wow.
And then those early days, like moving in that house on Charmaine, they put a partition up. There was 2 bedrooms, and one was a big long bedroom. They partitioned it to make 2 bedrooms, you know. And I remember Dad doing that work. And Grandma Lakey was going to live with us out there, but she decided she didn't like to live that far away from the city. She just stayed with us for a short while.
Hmm.
And another thing I remember, I probably was in the 2nd grade, and Daddy woke me up to go to school. And he told me that Mother had a baby boy, and that was Jimmy.
Aww.
And he read me a poem that he had written, and he sent it into this magazine that the Upjohn Company had, like a newsletter, and they printed it.
Aww.
And I often wonder if they could ever, if they had record of that, you know, wouldn't that be fun to get that, you know?
Yeah.
Because Jimmy weighed 10 pounds, and it was like a 10-pound baby boy. In other words, the poem was kind of showing Dad's thrill at having his
A
2nd
big
boy. And I remember Daddy kneeling down in front of me though and reading me that poem.
Aww. That's neat.
Fun.
Anything else?
Oh, well, so many good memories, you know, when each of the babies would be born, you know. That few days stay in the hospital, you'd get, and it'd be kind of a certain camaraderie amongst the other mothers, you know. It was always a pleasant time in the evening. You'd be talking, and after visiting hours, the lights would be low, and it was always a confident feeling, I guess. There was somebody there taking care of my baby, and
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's neat.
That's all.
I'm going to call it a wrap, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well,